X380847. That's my membership number in the Industrial Workers of the World. The IWW has been around since 1905, making typical unions with their bosses and bureaucrats pretty nervous. Since the stated goal of the IWW is the abolition of the wage system altogether, rather than reformist efforts to improve the conditions of the workers, through means that only seem to improve the conditions of the owners and the union bosses. Unlike every other union that sought to divide the workers into trades, the Wobblies, as the IWW was called, had the ambitious program of unionizing all workers into one big union, and thereby put the power into the hands of the workers collectively to shut down the industrial production system entirely. Like the famed anarcho-syndicalist unions of Spain, the FAI and CNT, Wobblies promoted worker direct action. In the teens and early 1920s, Wobblies were targeted with charges of criminal syndicalism, sabotage, and sedition. Yeah, it was treason to demand a fair shake, to imagine power wrested from the hands of the capitalists. Still is, of course. After FDR's New Deal and the rise of the more reformist and industrial-friendly unions, like the AFL-CIO, Teamsters, and United Auto Workers, the threat and influence of the IWW faded. Between state repression and the major unions collaborating to squeeze out the Wobblies, the IWW was largely neutralized during a time when anarchists were evolving new strategies and approaches that didn't necessarily involve the seemingly impossible task of organizing all the workers of the entire world into the same union. But the Wobblies didn't go away. They didn't become extinct. They're still around and making a comeback, if you can call it that, innovating to become relevant. The IWW is actively soliciting prisoner membership, something no other union, apart from specifically prisoner unions, has attempted to do. You don't see, for instance, the UAW or Teamsters organizing prisoners, even though you've got Honda workers at Mansfield Correctional in Ohio, as just one example. There's been a trend over the last 20 or 30 years for corporations to outsource production to prisoners who receive slave wages and lack the health and safety protections enforced in the so-called free world. That's one of the driving engines, by the way, of the prison boom and the incarceration boom. Cheap labor, leaving everyone else sleeping in their cars. Prisons are now third world colonies, fenced off and ready for exploitation. Why move a factory all the way to Mexico or India when you can take advantage of slave labor in Alabama prisons? Apart from simply keeping the repression machinery of the state operating, and thereby allowing the state to ratchet up the repression, the Green Scare, the crackdown on protesters as terrorists, prisoner labor is now an integrated component in the global economy. As an indication of just how essential prisoner of slave labor has become, in an Each One Teach One interview with Anthony Racing of the South Chicago anarchist Black Cross Zine Distro, I mentioned that if Ohio prisoners simply laid on their bunks for 30 days, the state's entire economy would collapse. It wouldn't simply disrupt the prison system, it would tank the state's entire economy, and it wouldn't recover for a decade. In 2008, a year after I made that observation, the state attempted to get me transferred to Supermax. So, if there was any doubt about my assessment of how critical prison slave labor is to Ohio's economy, the state's reaction certainly confirmed I was right. But prison authorities can't legally punish union membership. The U.S. Supreme Court in Jones v. North Carolina Prisoner Labor Union Incorporated made a distinction between membership, which is protected, and union activity among prisoners like striking, which is not. And this is where the Wobblies can become very effective at consciousness raising among prisoners, educating and radicalizing. Everyone can be a Wobblie, and once all the prisoners are Wobblies and act collectively, it's too late to put the proverbial poop back in the donkey. The state can shoot us to death, but it can't shoot us back to work. And they can't put all 3 million of us in Super Duper Max either. You know where 3 million Wobblies sit? Wherever they want to sit. If you have a friend or loved one locked up, or you just want more information, contact the IWW at 773-857-1090. That's 773-857-1090. Or email them, ghq@iww.org. You can snail mail the IWW at P.O. Box 180195, Chicago, Illinois 60618. Membership for prisoners is free. Wherever there's exploitation, Let's grind it to a halt. This is Industrial Worker of the World X380847 at Ohio Supermax facility. If you're listening, you are the resistance.
You can write to Sean Swain at Sean Swain number 243-205 OSP 878 Coitesville-Hubbard Road, Youngstown, Ohio 44505. To read some of Sean's writings and learn more about his case, check out seanswain.org.